global heritage will unite. We share brilliant values and honor the world's most cherished legacies to pass our heritage on to future generations. Busan invites you. The 48th session of UNESCO World Heritage Committee, July 2026, Busan, Korea.
In our headlines on this Monday, January 26th, here in South Korea, the tech-heavy KOSDAQ index starts its session by soaring past the 1,000 mark in the morning, triggering a circuit breaker, while the price of gold surges above $5,000 per ounce. And South Korea's climate ministry says the country will maintain plans for the construction of 2 new large-scale nuclear reactors by the year 2038, as planned under the former administration. And in the U.S. city of Minneapolis, ICE agents shoot and kill a second American citizen following an altercation amid the ongoing immigration crackdown launched by the Trump administration. We start with news of bullish markets, this time with the tech-heavy KOSDAQ soaring past the 1,000 mark and the price of gold surging above $5,000 per ounce. Our Kim Jun-hong has the latest numbers.
South Korea's secondary tech-heavy KOSDAQ index broke above the 1,000 mark on Monday, with early gains strong enough to trigger a buy-side circuit breaker. The index opened up 1.0% at 1,003.9 and finished higher at 1,064.41. A buy-side circuit breaker was triggered at 9:59 a.m. after a sharp jump in index futures temporarily halted program trading. Analysts attribute the rally to rising expectations of government support aimed at revitalizing the KOSDAQ markets, while warning that the pace of gains suggests possible overheating.
As the KOSPI gets closer to 5,000, money appears to be flowing into the KOSDAQ, which had been undervalued. But confidence in KOSDAQ companies' earnings is still limited, so it's hard to say if this rally will hold.
The KOSDAQ closing above 1,000 is the first time since January 2022 and was led by widespread gains in biotech, battery, and robotics shares. On the same day, gold hit another record high as a hedge against uncertainty. International gold prices rose 1.03% from the previous session, breaking above $5,000 per ounce for the first time. Gold is up 15% so far this year and nearly 80% from a year ago. The spot price for silver has also remained strong, gaining more than 45% this year after topping $100 per ounce over the weekend. Analysts say that even as stock markets rally, rising demand for defensive assets reflects abundant liquidity, lifting both equities and precious metals.
Gold and stock prices are rising together on strong liquidity. Expectations of a fiscal stimulus in Japan and China, along with policy uncertainty including pressure for higher defense spending from President Trump, are boosting global liquidity.
Analysts see room for further upside moves by gold, as the Bank of America and Goldman Sachs remain bullish, citing sustained demand driven by policy uncertainty. Kim Jun-hong, Arirang News.
South Korea will work to rejuvenate cultural cooperation with China as the most recent summit between their leaders has laid the groundwork for broader economic partnership. Now, this is according to Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul on this Monday. Our Ian Jin covers his remarks.
Following a recent summit between South Korea and China, the government here will move forward to work towards gradually restoring cultural cooperation alongside economic cooperation. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Finance Koo Yoon-chul presided over a meeting of economy-related ministers on Monday. During the meeting, Koo noted that President Lee Jae-myung's visit to China was the first by a Korean leader in 9 years, marking a milestone in restoring bilateral ties that have deteriorated in recent years. He also emphasized that it was time for the two countries to build a future-oriented foundation for cooperation. This will include moving beyond cooperation centered on traditional manufacturing to consumer goods and services that directly impact the people.
The government plans to gradually restore cultural exchanges across various fields, including arts, sports, and tourism, as well as games, music, film, and broadcasting, while expanding people-to-people exchanges.
Also, based on his recent meeting with top international financial officials, Koo discussed the strategic significance of critical minerals, saying that this was due to the spread of AI and the advancement of high-tech industries such as semiconductors and secondary batteries. He noted that if the 20th century was about petroleum, the 21st century is now at a turning point where such critical and rare minerals were becoming even more important, adding that the government plans to establish a support system for international cooperation and partnership. At the meeting, Deputy Prime Minister Koo urged all ministries to work closely together, always keeping the national interest as a priority in the spirit of forming a one-team Korea. Ian-jin, Arirang News.
Presidential Chief of Staff Kang Hun-sik will discuss defense industry partnership with officials in Canada. Addressing members of the media here ahead of his departure earlier this morning, Kang spoke of promoting South Korea's hopes to partake in the Canadian patrol submarine project. Canada is looking to procure up to 12 submarines in a project worth over $40 billion. The bidders are currently down to 2, including a consortium of Hanwha Ocean and HD Hyundai Heavy Industries competing against a German entity. Meanwhile, Kang is also scheduled to travel to Norway this week for talks on possible exports of the Chunmoo multiple rocket launcher system. Kang's overseas missions follow his early appointment as a special presidential envoy for strategic cooperation. Prime Minister Kim Min-seok returned home earlier on this Monday following his trip to the U.S. He sat down with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance to touch upon a wide array of issues, ranging from Kupang's massive data leak to follow-up efforts to their joint fact sheet to ways to engage North Korea. According to Kim, he and Vance also agreed to set up a hotline to facilitate interaction on bilateral matters. Meanwhile, as part of broader efforts to ensure clean energy, the Lee Jae-myung administration will maintain the former administration's plan for the construction of 2 nuclear reactors by the year 2038. Our Cho Young-eun explains.
The government announced Monday that it will move forward with a plan under the 11th Basic Plan for long-term electricity supply and demand. Minister of Climate, Energy and Environment Kim Sung-won said the government will build 2 large nuclear power plants, along with 1 using small modular reactors, as originally outlined in the plan revealed last year.
To address climate change, carbon emissions must be reduced across all sectors. In the power sector, coal-fired generation, which currently accounts for around 30% of the total, must be phased out by 2040.
The 11th Basic Electricity Plan, released in February last year, proposed the construction of 2 2.8 gigawatt nuclear plants by 2037 and 2038, as well as the 0.7 gigawatt SMR plant by 2035. The government later announced it would reconsider the project from scratch through bipartisan discussions. Following 2 rounds of policy forums and public opinion surveys, the ministry said an average of 80% of respondents agreed that nuclear power was necessary, with around 60% supporting the additional construction of power plants. The ministry also plans to expand energy storage systems and pump storage power generation to address the intermittency of renewable energy, while improving the flexibility of nuclear power operations. Korea Hydro & Nuclear Power is expected to begin the site selection process for the new plants in the near future. Construction would proceed after a 5 to 6 month site evaluation period, with permits targeted for the early 2030s and completion scheduled for 2037 and 2038. Cho Young-eun, Arirang News.
More than half of the 73 South Koreans who landed at Incheon International Airport from Cambodia last week to face online scam charges have been formally arrested. Our Chung Hae-rim has the latest.
South Korean police said Monday morning that formal arrest warrants have been issued for the 55 of the 73 scam suspects extradited last Friday. The authorities had requested warrants for 72 individuals immediately upon their return, excluding only one person whose charges were considered minor. The largest group of the arrested, 49 phone scammers investigated by the Busan Metropolitan Police, were arrested yesterday afternoon due to the potential for flight risk and possible destruction of evidence if they were released. The suspects reportedly posed as government officials and retailers, with the former tricking small business owners into purchasing goods for them from the latter, and later vanishing with money paid in advance. Police say those scams alone targeted 194 victims and caused losses of nearly 6.9 billion won, or almost $4.8 million US. A married couple who allegedly ran romance scams using deepfake technology were also arrested at Ulsan police station. The couple, who defrauded 104 people out of some $8.3 million, had gone through measures such as receiving plastic surgery to alter their appearance to avoid capture. An additional 4 suspects who were detained at Seoul and Incheon district police stations were also formally arrested, according to officials. Meanwhile, the remaining 17 suspects are attending warrant hearings, which began this afternoon at the Daejeon District Court in South Chungcheong Province. The statuses of these suspects, who defrauded 30 victims of approximately $3.4 million US, will be decided later today. Some of the 17 waived their right to attend the hearing, police said. Police officers say once the court issues decisions, they plan to wrap up the investigation and transfer the cases to prosecutors by this Friday. 정혜림, Arirang News.
In the U.S. city of Minneapolis, a 37-year-old American citizen has become the second person to lose his life after an altercation with ICE agents that ended with the latter shooting and killing the ICU nurse. Our Kim Do-yeon covers this latest tragedy.
Tensions in Minnesota have reached a boiling point following the second fatal shooting by federal immigration agents in Minneapolis this month. Crowds gathered on Sunday to mourn Alex Pretti, a former nurse at a veterans hospital. Demonstrators marched toward Minneapolis City Hall chanting "ICE out," breathing freezing temperatures to demand an end to what they call an unchecked federal surge. Despite the public outcry and the escalating unrest, federal authorities maintain that their operations will not be scaled back.
Our Title VIII immigration mission continues unabated here in Minneapolis, despite yesterday's tragedy that was preventable by folks making better choices, politicians, journalists, and would-be anarchists and rioters.
State officials are pushing back. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz directly addressed the Trump administration, questioning the strategy behind the federal deployment that has now resulted in 2 deaths, including 37-year-old Renee Good earlier this month.
So my question is, what's the plan, Donald Trump? What is the plan? What do we need to do to get these federal agents out of our state? You thought fear, violence, and chaos is what you wanted from us, and you clearly underestimated the people of this state and nation.
The circumstances surrounding Pretti's death remain disputed. It has been confirmed that Pretti was armed and held a valid license to carry. Authorities claim he intended to harm agents, but video footage from the scene has not definitively supported these claims, and a witness identifying himself as a U.S. veteran stated that Pretti did not appear to be resisting at the time of the shooting. The instability is drawing concern from businesses in the state. The Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, representing over 60 CEOs of major state-based companies, issued a statement Sunday calling for an immediate de-escalation. The chamber emphasized that the business community has been in communication with the White House and local mayors, warning that the current volatility is threatening the state's economic stability. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Also, in the U.S., a ferocious winter storm leads to fatalities, flight cancellations and blackouts across the southeastern and northeastern parts of the country. Our Lee Soo-jin has details.
At least 11 people have been confirmed dead as a massive winter storm continues to batter large parts of the United States, bringing heavy snow and ice from the Gulf Coast to the northeast. According to authorities on Sunday, the deaths mostly stem from hypothermia due to the freezing temperatures. The powerful winter storm has also knocked out electricity for more than 1 million customers, with outages reported as far west as New Mexico. Utility crews are working to restore power, but icy conditions and fallen trees are slowing repair efforts in many areas.
It could take days to restore power, and we know behind the storm, there's more cold air. So if you are stuck without power, you're going to want to find a way to make sure that you can keep your home warm and keep yourself warm for potentially days after this storm.
The storm has also triggered widespread travel chaos. According to flight tracking site FlightAware, more than 10,800 flights scheduled for Sunday were canceled nationwide, following more than 4,000 cancellations on Saturday. Airports across the east and south were forced to shut down or significantly scale back operations as runways and aircraft were coated in ice. Calling the storm historic, President Donald Trump on Saturday approved federal emergency disaster declarations for a dozen states, while the U.S. Department of Homeland Security said 17 states and the District of Columbia declared weather emergencies as the storm intensified. Officials are urging residents to avoid unnecessary travel and prepare for extended power outages, as forecasters warn that dangerous conditions may linger even as the storm's system gradually moves eastward. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
There are growing calls for middle powers to come together for joint action on matters of common interest, and the head of a leading French think tank dedicated to issues of Asia is highlighting the need for such partnership between South Korea and France. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young files this report.
Seoul and Paris must make their partnership instinctive and institutional to jointly counter global challenges. That's according to Arnaud Levaux, a French foreign affairs advisor and academic leading the Asia Centre. His remarks come as South Korea and France mark 140 years of diplomatic relations, at a time when both countries face mounting geopolitical challenges, particularly in the Indo-Pacific.
In that sense, the France-Korea relationship can become a testing ground for a new kind of partnership between middle power democracies, one based on realism, sovereignty and shared responsibility, not only on ideology and not on dependence.
America's demand for its allies to increase their own security, regional economic coercion and tensions over trade, minerals and emerging technologies, the prolonged war in Ukraine and North Korea's partnership with Russia are further changing and merging strategic calculations for East Asia and Europe.
For France, it's like we need more and more partners like Korea, because Korea understands deterrence, credibility and long-term pressure, because South Korea live with it every day. So I will say that France and Korea share a very pragmatic view on security. Both countries know that peace requires strength, but also self-control. So I will say strength without provocation and firmness without escalation.
From military and industry to technology, space and supply chains, Levaux believes potential for deeper partnership lies in both national and economic security and new strategic domains where larger powers are competing for dominance.
The first one will be maritime security and the protection of global commons, meaning that both countries, South Korea and France, depend on open sea lines freedom of navigation, and stable maritime space. So we can think to go from joint naval exercise to information sharing. But France and Korea can do much more to protect the rule-based order at sea, not against anyone, but to guarantee the stability.
France's foreign ministry says around 30 bilateral dialogue channels already exist across diplomacy, defence, economy and science. However, the professor says an instinctive trigger for cooperation is currently lacking.
Both countries share democratic values, a long diplomatic history, and strong people-to-people ties. But I will say that maybe strategically, the relationship is still under-institutionalized. There are a lot of cooperation, but there is no strategic reflex yet. And what I mean by co-constructions, maybe it's to work for joint ownerships in terms of industry, technology, security, normative projects, maybe for instance in AI regulations, but also in the development of defense capabilities, cyber resilience, supply chains, and standards.
Going forward, Levaux hopes to see tangible progress at the next Leaders Summit expected this year.
A meaningful outcome of leaders' meeting will be the elaboration of a shared strategic framework, one that defines clear priorities to identify concrete projects and create continuity beyond political cycles. And so I will say we need more symbolism and more architecture.
Officials say Seoul and Paris are moving to deepen strategic cooperation through high-level talks between foreign ministers and possible reciprocal visits by Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Emmanuel Macron. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Paris.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has said that a historic U.S. security guarantee is 100% ready for signing. He emphasized that this document now only needs a signing date before heading to Congress for ratification. This announcement on Sunday follows a breakthrough weekend in Abu Dhabi, where military officials from Ukraine, the U.S., and Russia held their first direct trilateral negotiations in years. Zelensky said the talks aim to push forward efforts to end Russia's nearly 4-year invasion, but stressed that Ukraine's territorial integrity remains non-negotiable. Negotiators are set to return to Abu Dhabi on February 1st for the next round of talks to finalize terms. In Indonesia, authorities on Sunday resumed the search for 82 missing people after a landslide killed at least 10 in West Java province. Heavy rains, which began the day before, triggered the collapse early Saturday in Pasir Langgu village, West Bandung. Rescue teams continued operations as weather conditions improved, but unstable ground and rain warnings slowed efforts and limited the use of heavy machinery. Officials said the collapse buried homes in a residential area, forcing evacuations and raising concerns about further landslides with more rain forecast for the region. U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened Canada with a 100% tariff on Canadian goods if it makes a trade deal with China. Trump said on Saturday that such a trade deal would allow Beijing to use Canada to bypass U.S. tariffs, calling it a direct threat to American economic interests. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney responded on Sunday, asserting Canada respects its U.S. trade obligations and seeks only to rectify specific tariff issues with Beijing, not make a free trade deal. American climber Alex Honnold stunned onlookers in Taipei on Sunday by free soloing the tallest building in Taiwan. Honnold scaled the 508-meter Taipei 101 skyscraper without ropes or safety equipment. He completed the climb in 91 minutes as thousands watched from below, with the event broadcast live by Netflix. The climb took place with official approval from Taipei 101 and city authorities after being delayed one day by wet weather. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Temperatures have inched up a bit compared to yesterday, loosening the fierce cold spells. Still, cold wave advisories remain in place in northern parts of Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces and northeastern parts of mountainous areas of Gyeongsang-buk-do province. This cold wave is set to hang around throughout this week. Late tonight into tomorrow morning, rain or snow is forecast, mainly in the west coast areas and Jeju Island. About 1 to 5 centimeters of snow is expected in the mountainous areas of Jeju Island, 1 to 3 centimeters in the Jeollado provinces, and around 1 centimeter in western parts of Chungcheongnam-do province. Tomorrow morning will start off at -7 degrees Celsius in Seoul, -4 degrees in Daegu and Gyeongju. Highs will rise to only -2 degrees in Seoul, -1 degree in Chuncheon. Meanwhile, areas in the East Coast with no precipitation are drying out fast. Please be careful not to start any wildfires. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session. Do stay with us.
Right now, the new shopping game is starting.
저희 누나가 발레를 하다 보니까 자연스럽게 누나 발레 학원에 따라가서 누나가 하는 모습을 보니까 저도 하고 싶다고 생각이 조금 들어서 발레 음악에 맞춰서 아무 춤이나 추다 보니까 그냥 그 음악에 맞춰서 제가 몸을 움직이는 게 재밌다고 느껴졌었는지 발레를 계속 하고 있더라고요. 나이가 좀 어릴 때 제가 가진 장점이 무엇인지도 모르고 아예 제가 가진 단점도 모를 때 발레를 시작했다 보니까 제일 큰 문제가 이제 평발이었던 것 같아요. 평발이다 보니까 발레를 할 때 쥐가 조금 많이 나는 편이라 그거를 견뎌가면서 춤을 계속 춰야 했던 거 그게 가장 극복하기 힘들었던 것 같고요. 제가 다리가 다른 친구들보다 조금 두껍다고 해서 제 다리를 조금 싫어했었는데 근데 이제 로잔에 갔다 오고 나서 오히려 제 다리에서 나오는 파워풀한 힘이 좋았다고 해주시는 분들도 있다는 걸 느껴가지고 그 두 개가 가장 극복하기도 힘들었고 기억에 남는 것 같아요. 플렉스티 로잔이라는 콩쿨 자체가 학생들 사이에서는 가장 크고 의미 있는 콩쿨이다 보니 제가 그 로잔 영상을 보면서 자라왔기 때문에 그 무대에 서서 제가 춤을 췄다는 것 자체가 엄청 인상 깊었던 것 같아요. 제가 걸어왔던 길, 이게 맞는 방법일까? 근데 그런 의구심을 다 없앨 수 있게 제가 가는 길이 맞았다라는 거를 확인시켜줬던 것 같아요. 그래서 그런 감정이 들어서 조금 감격스러웠던 것 같아요. 한 배역에만 잘 할 수 있는 명수가 아니라 어떠한 배역을 받아도 다 넣어서 소화해낼 수 있는 그런 스펙트럼이 넓은 명수가 되고 싶습니다.
Millennial and Gen Zs are reshaping the world. News generation shares their fresh perspectives on what's trending now. From global developments to everyday culture, we're diving into the stories that matter. This is News Generation.
World leaders took to the podium at this year's World Economic Forum in Davos amid shifting global alliances. With more on Press Perspective today. Hello and welcome. It's Monday, January 26th here in Seoul, and you're watching Press Perspective. I'm Min San-hee. Today, we touch upon the remarks shared by Western leaders at this year's Davos Forum against the backdrop of their American counterparts' ambitions for Greenland and more. For this, I have Chloe Bognon with French broadcaster France 24 here in the studio. Chloe, it's great to have you back.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I also have Fabian Kretschmer with German press agency DPA with us. Fabian, it's great to have you here.
Hello to you both.
Right, we shall start with you, Chloe. Let's begin then with the gist of the message shared by French President Emmanuel Macron at this year's World Economic Forum in Davos and its broader implications.
Yes, so the French president has been talking in Davos quite early on. The gist of his message, let's say, is that according to him, we are in a time of instability, imbalances, both in the security and defense field, but as well as the economic point of view. That is mostly what is interesting in Davos most of the time when they do their reunion. So what he's saying is he's warning the other leaders about the fact that there's a shift away from a world of international rules towards a world without rules, or what he called the law of the strongest. He's been speaking especially about imperial ambitions, so that's quite a direct reference that could be understood either to Russia, who has been attacking Ukraine, but also to the United States and their claim on Greenland, for example, at the moment, even though the president did not mention those countries at that moment. He's been also saying that cooperation is giving way to relentless competition. there, that's the only time he really quoted countries. He was speaking especially about the tariff war made by Donald Trump from the United States. And he was also speaking in the economic field about China and how it is competing with all the other countries regarding global exportation and global trade. According to him, there's things to do. He said there are answers to be given to this new state of the world that's going to happen. So two things that should not be done, according to him, is we should not accept. He was speaking to the other leaders. He said they should not be accepting passively things to be done. So they should not just be out watchers and being like, I'm not concerned by that because it's not touching my country directly. And he said they should also not be putting themselves up above it on a moral posture, just denouncing stuff and not doing anything about it. So according to him, there is the most important would be to have more cooperation. He was speaking especially about Europe. He was saying that the European Union should have more protection, not protectionism, but protection, more simplification in the way they're working so that they could get a greater autonomy and also more competitiveness as a very big global power rather than small countries that are still inside the European Union fighting against each other on the competition. And he said also that the G7 should be one of the multilateral tools that should be used. The France had already said that when they were taking the presidency of G7. So that's one of the tools that they really want to use. And I just want to quote him on the conclusion that I found was quite interesting. He was saying, we do prefer respect to bullies. And that's interesting because that does sum up what he was thinking mostly. But the interesting part also, and we'll see that later on compared to others leaders, is that he did not describe the bullies. He did not say who were the bullies. And he kind of stayed kind of above the ground when speaking about the different countries that he was thinking about, but without naming too much and not being too attacking too frontally the other countries on this specific speech that he made.
Right. Mr. Macron's calls for cooperation, Chloe, they were echoed by Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, and his words at this year's Davos Forum earned, and I'm quoting the Washington Post, earned a rare standing ovation. Could you tell us a bit about the Canadian Prime Minister's message and its impact?
Yeah, so his speech was said to be a defining moment of the week. That's what I was saying when compared to French President Emmanuel Macron. Mark Carney's words, he has been directly citing the United States in his speech and quoting them. What he said is he asked his counterparts to live to the truth. So to what he says is call it what it is, an intensifying great power rivalry. So just this is kind of the same idea as the French speech, but the difference is that he decided to name the United States as one of the power that has been, at the moment, being quite intensifying the competition between the countries. And he said he called, especially for middle power, what he called middle power countries, so the ones who are not China, not the US, the countries that are kind of by themselves or not enough to be shifting the powers. He said that they should make new alliances to face the United States threats and coercion that they have been making through tariff war. So we know that Donald Trump has been raising quite a few times again now the threat of tariffs, saying that you are not agreeing with me, you don't want to be part of this, then I'm just going to raise the tariffs for your countries. And the Canadian Prime Minister has been directly targeting this kind of elements and saying that it should not be happening. He said, and I'm going to quote him there because I think it's quite a powerful thing, he said to the middle power countries, if we are not at the table of negotiation, we are on the menu. And I think that's interesting. What he's saying is we should cooperate together to be an opponent to be reckoned with, rather than being eaten by the other big powers that we're just going to use us and take whatever they need from us. So why this speech especially worked and made everyone so impressed with it is definitely because it expressed the shock that most people have been feeling, most of the leaders, most of the pundits have been feeling about the decision, especially from the United States. But let's be honest about the whole state of the world at the moment. And it was never said so clearly before by any of the world leaders, because it is diplomacy. You're supposed to kind of go slow and not be attacking too much the others. And it's true that that was probably one of the eye-opening moments of Davos.
Right. Meanwhile, Fabian, what did German Chancellor Friedrich Merz say at this year's Davos Forum, and what is the relevance, do you think, of his remarks?
Yeah, actually his speech received a lot of media attention also by German media, and what he said, his core message was not too much different than what Macron said. He said the international world order as we know it, it's over. Now we are entering the era of great power politics, and he was basically citing 3 paradigm shifts or 3 developments that really changed this world order. One was, of course, Russia's war against Ukraine, which is very essential for Europe still, I mean, more than ever, I would say. Second, he mentioned the shifts or the transitions within the US foreign policy. So he used rather vague terms, but everyone was clear what was meant, namely that Trump plays by completely different rules than his predecessors. And third, China's rise. And he did not go into detail, but he basically said this is also one challenge or one reality that we have to deal with, that China now is a world power. So what can be done about it? He called for unity among Europe. He basically said Europe needs to get its stuff done, military-wise, so increase military spending, and secondly also economically. He was quite self-critical towards the European Union. He said we are regulating too much, we need to be more competitive, otherwise we cannot survive in this Darwinistic dog-eat-dog world. And that was quite remarkable especially by a chancellor like Friedrich Merz, because he was always an old-school transatlantic. He really placed the friendship between Germany or between Europe and the US above everything, and that is now also over. But he was basically also saying that we should not give up on the US, we should not give up on NATO. So he left the back door open. He just said we have to face with a new reality.
Right. The German Chancellor's address, Chloe, came after that of his US counterpart. What were your takeaways from Mr. Trump's assertions at this year's Davos Forum?
So, as usual, it was a whirlwind. I mean, either in his speech, but also on the side of it, where he's been threatening of tariffs. He's been speaking about Greenland again. In his speech, for example, if we want to link to the previous question I had, he did answer directly to Prime Minister, the Canadian Prime Minister. Actually, he said Canada leaves because of the United States, and then he directly talked to his counterpart saying, remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. I mean, we kind of know that Donald Trump can sometimes be kind of all over the place in his speeches, but they're still very important. We know that in Davos, everyone was waiting for his speech to analyze it and see what could be taken of it. So what's interesting is Wednesday, for the first time, he said that he would not take Greenland at gunpoint. That's something that he never denied nor confirmed it. Every time he was directly asked that question, would you send the army to get Greenland? He never answered it or would say, we'll see, can't answer now, etc. So that was a big relief point for the European allies, especially for Denmark. He also still insisted on the fact that the United States should get the ownership on Greenland. A lease would not be enough, even though the fact to have the right to station troops, because he's been speaking about security matters. He was saying that it would not be enough. Ownership should be done. He said to the European allies, you can say yes and give us Greenland and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no and we will remember. But then after the speech, he met with the NATO Secretary General, and after that, he said that he was actually ready for compromise about Greenland. So apparently he's been toning down a bit his position on this. But it's also interesting to see that on Thursday, when departing, he put a message, as he liked to do, on social media. And he said, it was an incredible time in Davos, but most of the pundits have been saying that probably not from the point of view of his European allies, because when you look at it, the way he's acting at the moment is probably, according to a lot of experts, going to undermine a lot the relationship with Europe, especially, and the trust that can be built. We're speaking about the transatlantic relationship that's going to be undermined for quite some time, I think, because of this kind of actions and turning point all the time on some specific subjects.
Right, and despite those concerns, Fabien, also in Davos, Mr. Trump rolled out his ambitious Board of Peace initiative. Could you tell us a bit about this board and the response surrounding it?
Well, I wish I would understand this concept, but okay, I will try to be neutral before I give you my opinion about it. Basically, it's an alternative to the UN to mediate in conflicts. Initially, it was framed to focus on Gaza, but Trump wants to expand that to other conflicts as well, and he wants to get as many countries on board, basically undermining the UN because he sets an alternative body. And why do you need that? I think that's only to serve Trump's egomaniac dreams. It is really, if you believe in multilateralism, it's very counterproductive for the countries to join. It's basically not really transparent how it is funded. I mean, so you have to pay money for the membership. What gets done with the money, that's totally not clear. And under whose authority is it? It seems that it's under the authority of one person, mostly. I mean, to be fair, Trump had some positive record for mediating in conflicts. I have to give him that. But mostly that was really the power of the US military. He could enforce many things, but a president like Trump, who until very recently said that he will even use military to annex Greenland, and that he wants to create a board of peace. I mean, that is very ironic, to say the least.
Right. Chloe, it's been said that French President Emmanuel Macron, he's not planning to join this Board of Peace. Could you tell us a bit more about this potential decline, and which countries then are actually signed on the Board of Peace?
Yeah, so Emmanuel Macron has not said anything officially. So the position of France for now is undetermined. But sources close to him have been saying, especially the French press, that he will decline the invitation. So that's kind of certain. It's interesting to see that Trump, when he was told about it, then threatened France and Emmanuel Macron himself with 200% raise of 200% tariff, on wine and champagne, knowing that the United States is the biggest market for French wine and champagne. That's obviously coercion, and he's been saying that, while in the same time saying that it will make Emmanuel Macron join the Board of Peace, while also saying that anyway doesn't want him to be there because he will be out of office soon, because it's true that 2027 France is going to have new elections for the presidential election. So that's what he was referring to, but still, it's all very confusing. And in France, the message that has been sent is a lot of French political, for example, the Minister of Agriculture, she has been saying that it was just a threat that's seen as brutal, that is blackmail, that is an offensive way of acting. And that's kind of what's make it hard to know exactly which country have already said yes or no, because some countries have said that they are part of it. There's a dozen already who said they are part of it. There's also some that are, according to a lot of people, will be joining soon. And then there are also other, like Russia, that are apparently part of the board. According to Donald Trump himself, is the only source on Russia joining the board. So it's kind of a mess for now, I guess. It's also because the invitations are just being sent. There's, for example, Vatican just recently said that the Pope did receive an invitation without accepting or denying it. But it's kind of, I will say, work in progress, and that's a bit hard to see. But when you see the reaction to one country declining the invitation, it's kind of look like it's going to be hard to navigate through who is coming or not and who is going to officially accept or decline.
Right. And staying with this, Fabian, what about German Chancellor Friedrich Merz? Has he shared his intentions? And also, what have you been hearing here in South Korea about Seoul's prospects with regard to this Board of Peace invitation?
Yeah, those are actually two different matters. I mean, the German Chancellor was relatively clear about that he will not join the Board of Peace, at least at its current form, but he again left the back door open. He said that, we are open to experiment in engaging with the US and the Board of Peace, maybe if it leads to productive outcomes, that we can try new forms. But Merz also quoted legal reasons. I mean, he doesn't want to undermine the UN. Would it be actually legally okay in terms of Germany's constitution to join a Board of Peace? That is really an open question. So he said basically no. That was relatively clear, and I think that was the right position, given that Europe has to be united and also say Trump that it's not okay to have territorial claims over Greenland. South Korea is in a different position. Actually, you know, the invitation by Trump, that reminds me of The Godfather, of a mafia boss who gives you an invitation that you cannot refuse. Why? Because, I mean, South Korea definitely has no interest to make Trump unhappy. South Korea doesn't want to get any economic retaliation, doesn't want to get new tariffs, etc. And for Trump, this is an important project. So many experts argue, just do it, keep Trump happy, it will benefit us, at least short term. But then, of course, it comes with a cost, and namely South Korea's will be tested whether it is really a government that will support multilateralism or not. So if they do join, it basically says that South Korea is undermining the UN. If they don't join, it risks getting some economic retaliation. It's really a dilemma, and so far Seoul has been very cautious, which is probably smart. I think Seoul will check out what is Tokyo doing, etc. And I mean, there are many things attached to that decision. So I'm sure a lot of heads are almost burning because it's tough to make that decision.
Right. And in the meantime, staying with peace, Chloe, over in the United Arab Emirates this past Friday and Saturday, there were peace talks with regard to Russian aggression against Ukraine involving Ukraine, Russia and the US. What has been shared about those talks?
So not a lot have been shared. It's interesting to see that it's the first meeting attended by those three countries together. It's following another very long meeting that happened just only between the United States and Russia in Moscow, where it was said that discussion went well. For now, what we know is the only ones who spoke officially, the United States negotiators say that the talks were productive. And then there's still one key sticking point that might make it hard to get anything out of it, is the remaining territorial issues, namely Russia is wanting to get 25% of the Donetsk occupied territory, while they are not currently owning 25% of it, and Kyiv has been able to keep most of that territory yet. So the two countries are not agreeing on that. And it's been a problematic point for quite some time already, because Ukraine has been quite clear, and the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, has said that Ukraine's positions are clear, and they are still clear. They want to get all of their territories back, even the ones that were taken before this new invasion. But Zelensky has said to the press, he said that it was briefed hour by hour by the negotiators who were in Abu Dhabi, and he said the main thing for him is that Russia should be ready to end this war that they started themselves. And he's also said that it was anyway too early to draw any conclusion.
Right. Fabio, what are your takeaways from the trilateral talks for peace in Ukraine?
I will keep it brief. I would say it's not a breakthrough, but a good development that the first three-way talks were held. But I want to mention one thing. Throughout all the talks, Russian attacks against Ukraine have been continuing. So there was no stop, not even for a couple of days, and that tells you a lot. So unfortunately, I'm still quite pessimistic when it comes to Putin's real intentions to make peace, because I think he has quite different imaginations how a peace deal should look like compared to the Ukrainian President Zelensky.
Right. Right. On that note, I'm afraid we'll have to end today's talk. Fabien, as always, thank you so much for your insights. Chloe, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you.
Right. We end Monday's edition of Press Perspective. As always, thank you for watching, and do join us again same time tomorrow.